And we are live. Good morning, everyone. It's Wednesday, so you know what that means. It must be Woke Women Wednesday. Dianne Wilkerson here with you this morning. Happy Wednesday. My guest, Mr. Goodnight, is actually trying to get into the studio, but I'm going to get started while we wait for him because there's always something I could share with you. I tell you, every time you come near this on Wednesday morning, when you join us, you always have either your thumb, on your phone or keypad, or you have a pen and piece of paper because there's always going to be something for you to write down. I like to always impart information, and we always have it. This morning, I always, you know what I do. I start with saying thank you. I thank you. I thank the women with the vision. That's what I call them. The women with the vision who had the notion, the idea to know how important it is to have a medium that would allow us to bring you information, important information in a timely fashion. Almost 3 years. It'll be 3 years in May, but in May 2020. And believe me, this wasn't even about the COVID. It just so happened that when woke WWOC Media started and came up with the idea for Woke Women Wednesday, it just so happened to coincide with the biggest pandemic in our lifetime. And so we spent a lot of time talking about COVID and how it affected all things Black and brown, which really is all of us, because there isn't a thing, a moment, a time, an event, a family that wasn't impacted by COVID. In fact, some would say still continue to be impacted because we're not done. So I thank you to the ladies who allow me to come here every Wednesday morning at 11 o'clock to say hello to you and to share some happenings. And so we're waiting for Mr. Goodnight. But in the meantime, let me just tell you this. Boston, Massachusetts, we're no different than all others in that we are going through redistricting. I talked about it, I think, about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And what that means is, you remember that whole census process we went through in 2020? Really, in the middle of COVID, we were doing U.S. Census. Every 10 years, we have to count how many people live in our cities and towns. We use those numbers to draw lines to divide up political subdivisions, like the city of Boston. We use them for the state as well. But for the city of Boston, what it means is we take the total number of people, which is around 680,000 people who live in Boston, and divide it by 9, because we have nine districts in our city council. So we divide it by 9, which means each councilor should have about 75,000 people in their district times 9. But those lines, on how you draw those lines, are what determines who represents you. We have District 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. We have 9 different district city councilors. Now we have 4 citywide, 4 who represent the whole city, no matter what. But for those 9 councilors, where those lines get drawn is a very big deal. And so right now in Boston, and you'll see probably chapter 50 today, because at 12 o'clock today, 12 o'clock noon, the Boston City Council is scheduled to vote on adopting a map that draws out the district lines for the city of Boston. Now, wow, is there a lot going on? I'm heading down as soon as we finish the show today. I'll be on my way to City Hall because I want to be there. There is a map that many of us in the community have embraced, called the Unity Map, and called such because so many organizations all around this city, Black, Latino, white, Asian, all got together and devised a map that we think not only comports with what we are required to do by law, pursuant to the Voting Rights Act, but also to the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, to the Charter of the City of Boston. And we drew a map that allows us to continue to build the strength and what we know as District 7, that's Roxbury. which is majority people of color, Black, Latino, and white, an incredible balance. And for almost 40 years since we created district counselors' position seats in Boston, has been represented by some of the most powerful and strong Black folks, from Bruce Bowling to Chuck Turner to Tito Jackson to Kim Janey, the first Black mayor of Boston, and now City Councilor Tanya Fernandez Anderson. That's District 7. We want to make sure that the lines get drawn in a way we continue to be able to do that. District 4, which is another one since the creation, has been represented by some powerful leaders in our city. Councilor Yancey, in fact, represented District 4 for, I think, more than 30 years. Certainly, Andrea Campbell, who is poised to become the first African-American female Attorney General in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And then now Brian Worrell is the counselor. So I think they've only had 3, if you can believe, only had 3. That's District 4. District 5 is what we call an opportunity district, pursuant to the Voting Rights Act, the Constitution, where we have an opportunity. We have an obligation to make sure, pursuant to the Voting Rights Act, we have to make sure that people of color do not get divided in political districts and boundaries that dilute their power intentionally. Because guess what? Surprise, surprise. That's the way that these lines used to be drawn. And now it's not legal to do that anymore. There are states in the South that are in court fighting right now because some of the maneuvering that went on in drawing congressional districts. So states like Alabama, right, don't have an opportunity, even though it's 25% Black, have one Black member of Congress because of the way they draw the lines, designed to make sure that they don't put Black folks together, even though Black folks are concentrated in the same space. So anyway, we're going through that in Boston. Boston has changed, right? It looks a little different than it did in 83, 93, even 2003, and I would say 2013. Just look around. It clearly is probably like 60, 65% people of color. And so we, with that in mind, we had to set upon that process. Now the city council votes on the map. And, there's some debate. I hope it takes charge, right? That the city council shouldn't be the one. Maybe we need a commission, because this city council process has been one, boy, hold on to your seats, okay? Right now, as I said, they are scheduled today for the second Wednesday in a row at the council meeting to vote on the map that will be adopted to lay out the lines. And we have to do it, they say a year before the next election. Our municipal elections are in 2023. So by November 8th, which is next Tuesday, we have to have a map, because if you want to run for city council in any of these districts, you are supposed to live in the district a year before the election, right? Okay, so with that in mind, these folks have lost their minds. So I said second time they scheduled the vote. Last Wednesday, they were scheduled to vote. And at the last minute, the president of the city council filed a request to delay the vote because a complaint was filed with the Attorney General of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. This has all happened since I saw you all a week ago. It's been crazy. So a complaint was filed with the Attorney General of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that said that when people of color, which would be us, met at the Bolin Building on the October 10th for the community and all the organizations to see the map, to talk about the map, and we invited the city councilors, but we did not allow them to speak. You know why we didn't allow them to speak? Because Massachusetts has this thing called open meeting law, which means no more than 3 of them can be in a place where they are discussing and deliberating a matter before their body without providing public notice and all. Well, guess what? This wasn't a city council hearing. So we weren't going to let them mess it up. So they 7 of them came, but we did not allow them to speak. It's recorded. That's a fact. No problem. Counselor Worrell, Counselor Fernandez Anderson, Counselor Mejia, Counselor Ruth Lugienne, Counselor Breeden, who is the chair of the redistricting committee, Counselor Aaron Murphy, Counselor Frank Baker. We're all present. We're all present. And as I said, but they weren't allowed to speak. And so Counselor Baker filed a complaint with the AG alleging that we violated open meeting law. Guess what? We couldn't. One, we're not a public body. But in any way, they used that as the reason for excuse last week to put off the vote, put off voting for the unity map. And the vote was scheduled for today. But guess what? Last night, another complaint was filed. And actually, this time, again, by a group of organizations from South Boston arguing that, let me see, you won't believe this, but I have it and I read it. What it says is, during the meeting at the Bowling Building, Counselor Baker sat on the side of the room. Counselor Murphy sat in the back. Counselor Breeden sat in the back of the room. But Counselor Mejia, Fernandez Anderson, Worrell, Lugienne sat together. The Black people sat together. And therefore, this is a violation. So same meeting as was complained about last week, but this week they sat together. Not that they were in the meeting, but that the Black kids sat together. Didn't this sound like lunchroom stuff? Remember we were at school and everybody would complain because the Black kids sat together? Think about what that means, though, because if the Black kids sat together, it means all the white kids sat together. For me, this has all been a little bit triggering because I may not look it, but I'm old enough to remember the meetings in the 80s and late 80s and 90s in South Boston when I went. There's a meeting, City Council had a meeting on Boston Fair Housing, and the meeting is in South Boston. I'm going to South Boston, so I went. Believe me, the stories I could tell you, you're going to have to buy my book to read those stories because it was harrowing. But so here we are again. So they had a meeting at the Condon School in South Boston, and it was ugly. It was ugly. It was like an angry mob, just angry because they don't like what the map says about where we're going to move the maps, where we're going to move the lines. Now think about it. I mean, wherever we move the lines, they have to start and end somewhere. Whatever you do, somebody's going to be across the street from where the lines end, right? Because that's just nature. That's math. That's physics. That's the way it works. But yeah, this is very, very, very emotional. From what I gather, the vote is still on. We're still scheduled to vote, right? But don't know what's going on. Don't know what's going on. I would encourage all of you, if you have the ability to do that, come into the City Council chambers on the 5th floor at City Hall today at 12 o'clock, and you'll see how democracy works. It's ugly. It is ugly at times, but it's not same on the national level. The reality is that this is so impactful to every aspect of our life. So it's important that we be involved in this process of redistricting. If you could, I just wish you had been able to listen to some of the testimony when you hear the counselors from certain parts of the city attack the chairwoman, Liz Breeden, who is from Alston Brighton. Admittedly, you talked to her 2 minutes, 1 minute, 30 seconds, and you're going to hear a very clear and distinct Irish brogue, right? And so why did I mean, I'm at the meeting and I hear these people screaming at her. They called her a race traitor. Like, this is Boston, 2022, right? They called her a race traitor. One of the city councilors yelled at her at the end of the meeting that's being recorded last week and said, I thought you were going to be different. You know what he meant by that? Um, Remember the story about August 30th when we watched with horror that city council meeting that erupted because of the decision by the president of the council, President Flynn, to strip Councilor Ricardo Arroyo from his chairmanship. He was the chair of redistricting. He was also the chair of government ops. And he was suspended because of a story that broke about something that happened 17 years ago, right? We learned subsequently that there had been an investigation, no allegations, it was unsubstantiated or no recommendation by the district attorney that no further action. You can question, whether you like or dislike or agree or believe what he said. Bottom line is he was stripped of the committee chair of redistricting. And many people cried foul for whatever, okay. Well, turns out that the president has to this day never explained to anyone under what rule he believes, what rule of the council he believes he's authorized to make such a major decision, right? But he did. So Liz Breeden, City Council Liz Breeden from Alston Brighton, became the chair. I said, with all her Irish brogue, she has demonstrated a kind of level of steel, right, as far as I'm concerned. Because if you were at that meeting at South Boston, sat there and listened to the almost 200 people, contorted faces, right, angry, screaming, being stoked on every minute, though, by their city councilors and their congressmen. Did I forget to mention that Congressman Stephen Lynch was there as well? And I heard those things yelled at her. They called her a race traitor because she supported a map that didn't give them what they wanted. And that one of the counselors said to her, as I said, Councilor Baker said to her on tape, so you can verify it, I thought you were different. Meaning, why the heck you think we supported getting Ricardo Arroyo kicked off of the committee and had you appointed? Because we thought we would be able to get what we want. And so it's been, like I said, triggering, like for people who weren't here or just heard some of the folklore about Boston at its worst. Boston, during busing conversations. Boston during the time in the late 80s and early 90s when the NAACP Boston branch sued to integrate public housing in the very development in the very neighborhood in which we sat 2 weeks ago for that meeting. That's why I said I was at that meeting in the late 80s and 90s. I was co-counsel for the Boston branch NAACP when we sued the Housing Authority to allow for the integration of Black and Latino and Asian residents into public housing. So I had a first-hand seat, right? So when I tell you I know I know from whence I speak, is because I was there. Like I said, served as co-counsel. And when I tell you the conversation, the feeling, the environment 2 weeks ago felt eerily similar to what we experienced in '89, I'm telling you, it was triggering for real. But it's also important. So you can't allow yourself to be intimidated, which is why I'm going back to City Hall today. And I'll be sitting there and I'll be waiting for them to call that vote. And I'm encouraging you all to come too. This determines, he said, the city council districts determine, not just kind of who you get to pick as counselor. Because one of the things that I think many elected officials and people who consider themselves political operatives get confused, they get it twisted, is what redistricting is all about. It's designed to allow the gathering and dividing of people that would create a situation to allow what we call like-minded people to elect a representative of their choice. Let me tell you what it's not. It's not a process that's designed to let elected officials pick their voters. And it's very easy to get swept up into that. But it's a big difference. Big difference between those two. It's not about the elected officials, it's about the residents. It's about the fact that, people that live in Roxbury and deal with the same issues, whether it's gentrification, people who live in Chinatown and have issues about language access, want to be in a political division with other Asians who think the same way. This is not a cherry picking. Don't get me wrong. What it is it's a law because of the Voting Rights Act that allows us to make sure that those Asians in Chinatown, and the Asians that live near them, in Cathedral or Via Victoria or Symphony East and West on Huntington and Mass Avenue, don't get so split so that they never are able to coalesce enough together to represent someone that represents them. So when I say it's a Black district, and said that they are allowed to represent a representative, a counselor of their choice, I don't mean that and the law does not say that means that we put together a map that allows them to elect a Black city councilor. What it is we put Black people together that allows them to elect a representative of their choice. And oftentimes that doesn't necessarily mean a Black person. We've had districts, city council districts, state rep districts, senatorial districts that have large numbers of people of color and have white electeds. And if that's what people choose to do, that's what the Voting Rights Act was designed to facilitate. So don't get confused. It's not about I have a right to have a Black senator, a Black a state rep, or a Black counselor. In fact, if you look at the City Council District 6 that is represented by Kendra Lara, I'm not sure. I don't know if there's 5 or 6% Black people in that district. But the people that are there got together and decided that she is the person that they wanted to have represent them, right? That's the way this is supposed to work. That's the way it's supposed to work. And that's the way it's been working. Now, other piece that you need to know about redistricting so you can understand all of what you're reading and what you're seeing. The districts, as the way we have them divided right now, has District 2. District 2 is represented by the City Council President, Ed Flynn. And in the growth and change in Boston over the last 10 years, District 2 is now overpopulated. Remember I told you take the 675,000 divided by 9. Each district should have like between 72 and 75,000. Well, District 2 has 88,000 people in it. Why? Because of the seaport, because of the ink block, and because of the new community that is growing and evolving in the seaport. It's 13,000 residents over what they are supposed to be, which means what? That the redistricting process for them requires that they move 13,000 people out of District 2 into the adjoining districts. That means, you go to, maybe we go up. What's up is District 1 that happens to be represented by Gabrielle Coletta. But the problem is she's already at her max, so we can't move anybody there. So maybe you go a little bit, kind of the 11 o'clock, District 8. That's Kenzie Bach. The problem with that? She's also at her limit, so we can't move much there. Then you go right to the to the west, adjoining, because the east is water. So the only place everybody got to shift to the left, right? That's District 7, represented by City Councilor Tanya Fernandez Anderson. She represents Roxbury. The problem is almost, I'm going to say 80% of the 13,000 people that we need to move from District 2 are white. So we can't move them to District 7 because that is one of the historically majority districts. And so we can't move to District 7 because we would totally disrupt the whole apple cart, and we don't want to do that. We can't do that because the Voting Rights Act says we can't dilute that population of Black vote. So then we go south, right? What's south? Dorchester, District 3, currently represented by City Councilor Frank Baker. And guess what? He needs 8,000 people. And so the practical answer to the problem of where do we move these 13,000 people would be that the majority of those people should go from District 2 to District 3 because he's undercount, right? Except there's a problem. The southern part of District 2, represented by Ed Flynn, and the piece that adjoins District 3, represented by Frank Baker, is South Boston. And all of the elected officials connected South Boston, which means the Congressman Stephen Lynch, the City Council President Ed Flynn, Frank Baker, Mike Flaherty, who's a citywide city councilor but lives in Southie, Aaron Murphy, who is a citywide city councilor but lives in South Dorchester, all say you cannot touch South Boston. Well, that has presented a bit of a problem, if you can imagine, because it's the only place we could take any number of people to move into District 3. So therein lies the battle. The lines, literally and figuratively, have been drawn. They are going to use every possible machination, trick of the trade, you name it, to try to delay the vote. They did it last week, got a week delay because there was a complaint filed. Guess what? There's another complaint filed. And those complaints are, you can bet, are going to keep on coming because they do not want to get to a vote. Why? Because I think there's enough votes to support adopting the map that was filed by the chair, Liz Breeden, and filed by Liz Breeden and City Councilor Ricardo Arroyo. And they don't want that vote to happen. So the map that was put together by this majority of community organizations, a diverse, incredible coalition, was actually adopted almost in total by a majority of the city council. And we believe that on today, they will be voting to adopt that map. It will then go to the mayor. She can decide she's going to support it or she will veto it. I can't imagine she would, but who knows? Stranger things have happened. And then it becomes fine. It's the map. We then send it on to the legislature, let them know this is how our lines are divided. So I know this is the second time I think Paul Goodnight's supposed to be here because we had this whole month planned to bring you our Black artists, and I'm still hoping we're going to fix it. I'm just not the techie, so I can't help once we get on. But we're going to keep trying till we get this right. So you will see him. I'm hoping you're going to get to hear. You're also going to get to see our own incredible and fantastic artiste, Echoa Holmes, Paul Knight. I'm working on Lou Jones because we don't celebrate them enough. You know, these are folks who are winning national and international awards all over the world. And most folks don't even know they live around the corner, right? Like right around the corner, excuse me. But they do. And we should know them, right? This is part of our living history. We should know them. And if I have anything to do with it, I'm going to help facilitate us getting to know them. So stay tuned. Stay close. Like I said, I'm going to, if we have to have, maybe what we'll do is literally meet Paul in person, so he doesn't have to figure this out. He doesn't know, but you all are my witness that from day one, and every Wednesday that I have been on Woke Women Wednesday in the morning, where I've been doing it, Zoom, not the live where we travel around the city, but every time I do my Wednesday morning, I do it with the backdrop of two Paul Goodnight pieces of art right over in my background. I don't think he knows that. So you all are my witness. I'm not showing off just for him. This is what it looks like every Wednesday because he happens to be one of my favorite, and I cherish these pieces. These actually are numbered pieces because that's how long I've had them, right? So I'm very proud. I'm tickled. I can't wait. And we're going to get him. We're going to get him. We're going to get him. We're going to make this work. But in the meantime, stuff is happening, people. And so maybe next week in the breach, we'll talk a little bit too about the public safety meetings and all of what is going on, and an update even from our beloved Dr. Jean McGuire. Wouldn't it be great? I'd love to get her on. Maybe I'll do that. She's doing great, folks. She's doing great physically. As I said, when people ask me, is she okay? I say, hell no, she's not okay. Would you be okay? At 91 years old, somebody attacks you and beats you to the ground and tries to assault you and tries to kill you in the park and stabs you, beats you with one hand and stabs you with the other, because that's what happened to her. And unfortunately, there has been no arrest yet. And so now I'm a little worried because I was hoping if they got somebody soon, they'd still have the bite marks on them from her dog. But 3 weeks out, things start to heal. And I'm a little worried that we haven't seen a suspect arrested yet. But you know what? It has pushed and fostered a conversation that must occur, that needs to occur, about how we have public safe spaces and safe places for women and children, and men too, but women and children to walk and play and in our city, in our community. Our park is a park. The park, Franklin Park, was never designed to be part park, part recovery center. And so all this notion, the planning to put 400 units there, you understand what has happened. All you got to do is spend a little bit of time and go over there and watch, and you'll see what I see. No discussion, but Franklin Park, Grove Hall, Nubian Square, Clifford Park have become the go-to places for people who are displaced from mass and caste on a regular basis. They have moved into the neighborhoods, and the consequences have been dramatic for us. I'm all for treatment. I know that our folks are hurt worse than others, but I also see what happens when that kind of pain and trauma is unleashed in a community, and people who are living on the streets need things, so they go into the businesses and they'll get it wherever way they can. And as a result, our pharmacies are closing. Walgreens in Nubian Square, Walgreens on Warren Street and Columbus Avenue. I'm hearing are now announcing the Nubian Square closes next week, but now I'm hearing Washington Street, Warren, Quincy and Warren, and then even Eggleston. And understand, if you go to South Bay, you know what I mean. Folks, we don't address this, we're going to become a commercial ghost town. We won't have any place to get basic needs if we don't force those who are responsible to do what is responsible. But in the meantime, I'm disappointed because I know that Paul was calling me, but like I said, I'm not the techie. So I'm going to literally make sure that we get him. I'm going to be in the same space as him. That's what we'll do to make sure you get to see him. And we're going to keep it moving. In the meantime, you hear the whispers and some of the caution. Continue to wear your mask in public and in large spaces and closed store spaces in particular. COVID is real. I have a friend of mine who went to work yesterday and 7 people in the office had COVID, right? So she turned around, went back home. So don't think this is not gone. It's not gone at all. And this RSV on top of it, which is literally hospitalizing children to the point where they're at the max, killing babies, and really, really serious respiratory on top of flu, on top of COVID, for if you have any autoimmune or immune compromised system, you got to be careful. Be careful, folks, because we're in that season. You can continue to get testing, PCR testing and vaccine boosters included at the Bolin Building in Nubian Square, um, Tuesday through Saturdays. I actually took my mom to get her booster before she got on a plane, so I know it's real. And we're looking for some other places to make sure we're able to continue to provide health services to our community because we need it the most. Woke Women Wednesday signing out. Dianne Wilkerson. Thank you so much. I will see you next week again. Thank you for the Women with a Vision. Wear your mask. Stay safe. 12 o'clock noon, City Council, City Hall. We're out.